All right, guys, time for your non-objective watercolor painting. So what does non-objective mean? It means you are not trying to make it look like anything. It's art that just is a combination of colors, shapes, lines, and it creates a beautiful piece of artwork. So for this non-objective painting, there are a set of rules that you're going to have to follow. So you're going to have to make 8 edge-to-edge lines. That means on your paper, it could be the short edge to the short edge, it could be the short edge to the long edge, whatever you need to do, but it needs to be an edge to an edge. So it needs to cover the whole surface of the paper. So you're gonna do 8 of those lines, and 2 of those lines must intersect with each other. So there's gotta be some sort of an intersection point. You can do more than 2 intersection lines. I, of course, always do. But you're not required to. And then each section is colored differently from another section. So what I mean by that is you don't have to do the whole rainbow like me. You could choose a very limited color palette. You could choose sunset colors, ocean colors, black and brown, but you have to color it differently in each section. So even though I have a blue section next to a blue section, this is a graded wash and this is done wet on wet. So you just need to treat each new shape created differently from the ones next to it. Because if you do all these beautiful lines and paint it all the same, we're not gonna be able to see all these crazy cool intersections. You're just gonna have a blue painting or a red painting or an orange painting or whatever colors you do. So there are a few different ways that you can go about breaking up the space of your watercolor paper. These also kind of relate to a level of art. So if you struggle with art, we have some easier ones. If you're really, really, really good at art and you're passionate about art and you're up for a challenge, we have some challenging ones. So the first way that you can break up your space is in a very geometric way. You grab a ruler and you break up your space very easily with 8 straight lines that go to edge. These make different triangles, rectangles, trapezoids, parallelograms, but they're very easy to color in then. This is a really good one if you feel like you kind of struggle with art sometimes, or maybe you possibly are crunched for time. This one would be a little bit easier for you. The hardest one that you guys are gonna do is called organic. So organic, as you can see, there are no straight lines here. They're all curvy, drippy, crazy, wavy lines. They're lines that don't have a rhyme or reason to them, but even this drip line, I didn't just stop it in the middle of my paper. I made sure it went to the other edge. Same thing with these curvy lines, with this very oceany wave. But again, this is harder because your shapes are much trickier to color in. With this geometric, you just have 3 sides, 1, 2, 3, to color in, or to color around and then color in. For this drip, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it gets a lot trickier because you just are covering the surface is a little bit differently. The kind of middle average option for you guys would be a combination of geometric and organic. So what I did here is I have quite a few curvy lines, but then I've divided the space with some straight lines. You can see that this particular shape here is much easier to color in than, say, this shape over here. So you're going to choose which one of these designs you'd like to do. I don't want you to copy exactly what I did. I want you to explore your paper space in a geometric way, an organic way, or a combination of geometric and organic, and it should be a reflection of your art and your style. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to do a geometric one just because it is a little bit quicker, a little bit easier. This one that I did, this was a combination of geometric and organic, just if you were wondering. So what you're gonna need is a pencil and you're going to need a straight edge. All right, so I'm going to draw 8 lines. The way that I usually follow these rules is I like to do 6 lines and then I do my 2 intersecting lines last. But if you wanna have a lot of intersections, then maybe you're just turning your paper every which way. Don't draw too dark with your pencil, kind of like a medium pressure is what you wanna go with. Now, if you would like to do more than 8 shapes, don't let us stop you, or 8 lines, excuse me. I'm throwing pencils everywhere. Do whatever feels comfortable for you. So what you guys are gonna do during this is I highly, highly recommend that you have your techniques paper out. And the reason for that is if one of the rules is that you have to treat each section differently, well, look at this. You have 9 different ways that you can treat space. In addition, you have the swatches of colors here. Please feel free to use your palette to mix multiple different types of colors, to, you know, if you want a lime green, to mix it on your palette and then to use it. It can be whatever you guys want. Remember when we talked about going wet on dry, make sure that you're anticipating where your brush goes, that you are looking at where the tip of your brush is, and you're not just like using the side of your brush. If you notice that your paint looks kind of like dry, you probably need to get it a little bit wet. You shouldn't be painting with like sludge. It should be able to glide across the surface. Another thing that you guys need to do is you need to work around your paper. So if I do this shape, I really shouldn't do this shape or this shape because they're gonna flood into each other. So it's gonna be important that you guys hop around as you're working. So I'm gonna start pretty simple. I'm gonna do a graded wash. And I'm gonna stick with cool colors for this one. With the last one I did rainbow, I'm gonna stick with cool colors for this one. I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit. So I'm making sure to start a little bit away from my edge so I can kind of not have a big puddle of paint on my brush. And I'm gonna fill this in with water down here because I want it to get dark where I started and get lighter as it goes down this shape. So I might only be even painting with water as I move down the shape. It's okay if you don't perfectly follow the line. I'm not even perfectly following the line. Okay. So when I'm examining this, I'm gonna wanna stay away from this whole area right here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shapes that I don't wanna paint right now because they might bleed into this one. And remember, you're supposed to treat every section differently. So if everything's bleeding together, you're not really maintaining those separate relationships that you have. So I'm going to skip down here next. And I'm gonna do, why don't we do color bleed? So it's almost like I'm using my techniques paper that I did, almost like a menu to choose. Okay, I'm gonna do that next. I know pink is kind of a warm color, but I use it in this color scheme all the time. I guess I'm going for like a Frozen color scheme. Frozen 2 color scheme. Ooh, that purple's powerful. Oh my. Okay, so I can't do anything around here, so I could go right here because the edge of this does not touch this. Probably still be some bleeding though, because that's my life. This time I'm gonna do some paper towel. this one. Oh, that's okay. I was gonna do wet on wet, but now my color's all messed up. Let's see if it still works, even with some tinted water. Oh, I'm just painting water. Okay, so I think you guys kind of get the hang of it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna continue to use my watercolor techniques paper, and I'm gonna hop around my piece. You might have to work over this project over a few days because it does take time to let things dry. So I can't go back to this section until this is dry to the touch. Even then, you might have some bleeding if something overlaps. If something bleeds like crazy, you can grab a tissue paper really fast and try and clean off something that bleeds, let it dry, and then go back and paint later. That's a good way to go about things. But I'm just gonna continue to work around my painting and work where I feel the areas are dry. And I'm gonna stick with my cool color theme and be using my super cool techniques that I have here. So I just want to take a second to tell you guys, as you can see, I'm getting impatient and some of my colors have bled into other areas. So if that happens, something you can do is you can take paper towel and you can kind of stop the bleeding. So it's bleeding because something is wet bleeding into something else wet. So if you take the paper towel and you dab it, let it dry. You're gonna be really tempted to go back and paint it. Don't paint it. So I've been letting this area dry for a little bit, and it's still not dry because it's still bleeding over. Now, if you're too rough on your paper, which I was in this area, and I wanna show you guys, you're gonna actually get your paper fibers to come off. It's really important to not oversaturate your paper and then mess with it. So because it's wet and I pulled it, it's breaking, which of course makes sense. If a paper towel is wet and you put pressure on it, it's gonna break too, much more easily than when it's dry. So just be cautious of that. If you guys do have to fix mistakes or anything like that, or you want to go back and fix something, give the paper time to dry and then go back and fix your mistakes. So like this area where I had some bleeding and this area where I had some bleeding, I want to go over this with blue, actually in both areas. If I did it now, my blue would start to rip away my paper or even go into the section next to it. I need to make sure everything's dry. So this project definitely does take some patience, which I am not being very good at exhibiting right now, but do as I say, not as I do, and continue to work on yours. So again,